champ at 130 pounds, Mr. Adrien Broner. How you doing, man?
I'm all right.
Hey, real quick, man. Do you have the comb with you right now? Are you brushing your hair?
Yes. Yes, I just got done.
You want to make sure that you're comfortable and well groomed, ready to go.
How you doing, brother? Happy New Year's. First off.
Happy New Year to you too, man.
Take us right back to your title win. You know, some people look at it as controversy. You're fighting for a vacant title. You didn't have to take it away from somebody, but for you, the fighter, you've been working your whole life for this moment. Does it change that at all, or just to you, it's I'm winning a belt and that's all that matters?
It really didn't matter who got in the ring that night. I was still gonna be victorious, and It probably would have been worse if it didn't happen in the third round. It could have been worse for anybody. So I was just glad to get the victory, and thank God for the victory. So we're gonna move forward from there.
Were you surprised when we were actually literally just talking about this as you called. It seemed like Rodriguez just kind of said, screw it. I'm going to throw every punch I've got, get this guy in the corner, and see if I just can't get a lucky knockout. Did that surprise you that he went all in that fast?
No, you know, when guys get frustrated in the ring, they tend to lose focus, and that's what they do. They get wild, and you know, I'm a fighter where I look through all of that. You know, he was wild. He thought he had me in a rough spot, but you know, I came up out like the champ I am, and I put together some good shots and set him up, and he fell for it.
And finished it, yeah, pretty fast. It was kind of reminded me of, I forget which Tyson fight it is, where a guy throws like 20 punches at him. Tyson just looks at him, throws one, and the guy's gone. You didn't really seem to even get hit by much. You were like,
yeah, man, when I first came to the gym, man, that's what I learned first. It was defense, and that's something I came very freely with. You know, some guys they let their offense be their defense. Well, I have both, so I got best of both worlds. I'm fast, I got the power, offense and defense. So you know, I can really take on anybody at this stage.
You really think that? I mean, at this point, you're 22. You know, you're not. I mean, you're tested in that you've been in the ring and people have punched you in the face and you've won and you're undefeated, but you haven't been. We haven't seen you in a knockdown, drag out kind of thing. Is that next for you? Do you welcome that kind of challenge? Somebody that when the fight starts, fans have no idea who's going to win this.
Man, look, man, I make hard work look like easy work. I'm going to keep easy work, easy work. I work hard and get easy money. That's what I do. That's me. They say every fight from here is going to get harder, but I just make it look easy. They say I'm fighting nobodies, but I just make them look like nobody. You know, Eloy, he's a good fighter. I respect him. He's 23-0. 7 knockouts, you know, he's good. But at the end of the day, man, come on, he's not going to beat me. I don't care who is going to be February 25th. It don't have to be Eloy. It can be anybody. They're not going to beat me. I can beat anybody, and nobody's going to beat me.
I like your confidence, man. I like the fact that you are very confident and like you said, you know, you're willing to fight anybody. It doesn't matter. Let's talk a little bit about that Ponce de Leon fight. What happened there, you know, Adrien? Because everybody obviously was picking you to really kind of blow him out of the water, but you struggled with him. What was it about Ponce de Leon that kind of set you have a little bit of an off night?
For me, I looked at the fight. I could have did more, but at the end of the day, I did it. I had a great performance. You know, Ponce de Leon, he's one of the greatest punchers in the featherweight division. He's awkward. He's not the most skilled, but he's very rugged and awkward. And fighting a guy like that, he can sometimes make you look not as good as they say. You know, you can't just go in reckless on Ponce de Leon. You know, he throw wild shots. He throws shots from angles that regular fighters don't throw. So you really have to be careful and pick your shots, and that's what I did. That night for me, it was just my first time on HBO. Get the win and go on to the next one. Because in this game, as long as you get that W, man, that's all that counts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, It did seem, I mean, that was a big leap in class for you, considering what the guys you'd been fighting, and then boom, HBO co-main event against the guys that...
I mean, the guy had more knockouts than I had fights,
Yeah, right.
People sometimes they don't look at all of the facts to the situation. He, like I said, he was an Olympian. He wasn't just no guy just to walk over. He was a solid testing matchup, and I learned from that. And all that matter is I stuck to the game plan. I did what I had to do, and I had fun.
How big do you think you can get? Not in terms of popularity. I mean, I think that time will tell that. The more guys you knock out in highlight reel fashion, and certainly they're building you as a draw. But in terms of your size, do you look? You kind of come from that generation, similar to myself and Dave, where we watched Mayweather grow up and Roy Jones, weight jumpers. Do you want to be a weight jumper and move to divisions and get titles and multiples? And how far can you go?
We definitely gonna get on top of a trampoline and jump as high as we can go. It really don't matter, man. At any weight, I'm still gonna be fast. I'm still gonna have the pop. I'm still gonna have the power. I'm still gonna have the speed, man. These guys, they just not gonna beat me, man. They can't outthink me in there. I'm not. I just don't go in and throw punches. I don't do that. You can't. It's like these guys is playing checkers when I'm playing chess, man. They so many moves behind, It's just, man. I'm just ready for whatever bring my managers and promoters bring to the table. I'm gonna be ready for it. I'm gonna go to camp. See Eloy. I hear that he's starting training camp January 9th for me, but I've been training, man. I was back in the gym on Monday after Rodriguez fight. So I've been ready. We can fight tomorrow, man. I can make weight next week. I've been ready, man. Ready is my middle name.
I thought it was the problem.
That's my alias. The problem
is How much of Eloy, besides his record, how much do you know about him? Have you seen tape of him? And if you have, what are your thoughts?
Look, man, I don't watch these fighters. I don't have to do that because at the end of the day, a fighter fights one fight, but they don't go in the next fight fighting the same. So you just watching tape on somebody, that's not really going to do much because what you watching tape on, he's not going to come in and do the same thing. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So basically, yeah. I just make sure I'm very, very well conditioned, very focused. Everything's on point, and I just go in there and do what I do. Probably the first couple of rounds I make my adjustments. When we get in the ring, we gonna have to see what he can do. He's gonna have to make me respect his boxing skills. Cause right now, man, it's gonna get real bad. I'm talking Sam Cassell ugly. I promise you, it's gonna get very ugly in there. February 25th. I mean, he's good. I'm always respect him for what he did in the game. He's 23-0. 7 knockouts, but at the end of the day, I got to destroy this guy, man. He's trying to take food away from my kids.
Did you just say it's going to get Sam Cassell ugly?
Yeah, Sam Cassell.
That's pretty ugly, man. That's yeah, Tyrone Hill maybe a little uglier than Sam, but I don't know. That's interesting. And I remember you when we talked to you the first time. I think you've been on the radio show before, and you had talked about how you do pick your opponents in terms of you see the tape, you take a look at the guy, and give the nod yes or no. Did you do that in this case, or now that you're a title holder, is that a little bit less in your hand?
Every fight I learn more and more, but I think I'm maturing in the class I'm in. I'm maturing in the craft I'm in. I'm just really finding myself. And right now for me, I feel like it really don't matter who they put in those four corners, man. I got something for anybody. I'm a jack of all trades. I can do it all. If I got to sit down and bang for a couple rounds, I do that. If I got to box your head off, spin around, laugh at you, stick my tongue out at you a little bit, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm a master at this already. I'm only 22. I'm young, but I was schooled by the older dudes, man, and that's what make me so different.
So it makes you trainer. I had a really nice long talk with him about 3-4 weeks ago out here in L.A. and about maybe 3 weeks ago. He just seemed, like you said, the old school guys. I mean, he understands how to build a guy from the ground up, what's actually important to a fighter's success and all that. Is that what's in the water there in Ohio? It's because it seems like there's a lot of really good boxers that are coming out of there. Rasheed Warren, we had Chris Pearson on earlier, and now yourself. There's something going on in Ohio. It's kind of old school.
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's in the water or in the ribs, man. But Ohio definitely. I mean, Cincinnati definitely spit out a lot of talent, man. And I'm just happy I'm a part of the saliva.
Absolutely.
Are you guys going to head back there more? Because I know you did your last fight there, but this fight's going to be in Missouri. Yeah.
I mean, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Washington. We're like the same. We can all relate. Rugged, Chicago. We can all relate. So going to St. Louis is what 4 to 5 hours away. I still feel like I'm at home. I mean, to be honest with you, it don't matter. It don't matter where you put me at. All I need is a punching bag and a ring and some gloves, and I still come out a world champion.
But in terms of just building your audience is what I was thinking, But I guess, it's only 4 or 5 hours away. Are you starting to notice that? I mean, in general, because you did a lot early on fighting in your hometown. Is that something you want to do as a champion? So you can not only just be, I think your style is going to be fun for ratings, especially the way, your last 2 fights have gone. But in terms of also, when it comes down to clout and negotiating, you can say, but I also bring asses live to the audience,
right.
Put asses in the seats. Is that important to you as well?
That was the whole plan from the beginning. We're going to keep fighting at home. When Golden Boy has a fight, we're going to fight, but we're going to keep fighting at home to build that fan base, because a lot of fighters, a lot of champions, they can fight at home and probably won't even put 1,500 in the seats. Me, just my first HBO fight at home, I did good. I did more than good. A lot of people came out. It was an exciting crowd, and I put on a great show. So the next one, it's only gonna get bigger and bigger from here. Sky's the limit, and I'm skyrocketing, man. If you're not on this plane before takeoff, man, we're flying over you.
All right, brother. Well, good luck in February against Eloy Perez, and keep us updated. And thanks for coming on the show with us, man.
All right, and I'm going to correct you, man. I don't need luck because luck run out. I'm blessed.
I like that. All right.
We're here with Dr. Marget Goodman. I'll give you your official title. She's with the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association. Welcome to the show, Margaret.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Margaret. How you doing?
Official title there. Oh, sorry, Dave.
I guess as far as Vada is concerned, president of Vada, and chairman of the board that we have.
Take us back. There's so much history here, but it's kind of a short history of PEDs and testing in boxing. Take us back to maybe 2001, or really the beginning of your journey, and really in Nevada also beginning the drug testing. How did that all start for you?
Right. Now, it's funny because I was trying to ask Dr. Hobansky, who was the chief physician for the Nevada Commission for over 25 years and was a commissioner, and he came on the Athletic Commission in Nevada in, probably like the late 1980s. And they were already conducting drug testing for stimulants and narcotics, but PED testing, as far as looking at anabolic steroids, was really never brought up until around 2001. And I think, looking back, I can't remember if it was Bota, the former heavyweight. I can't remember. Someone like that had tested positive overseas. And it came up that, why weren't we doing testing in the United States? And Dr. Homansky was the first one to propose that, and that was adopted by the Nevada Athletic Commission around 2001, 2002, and has obviously evolved since. There's very few athletic commissions that perform any kind of drug testing in the United States, let alone for anabolic steroids or other performance-enhancing agents. But truth be told, Nevada was the first, and it was all from Dr. Homansky.
Was there resistance in the beginning? What was the education process like? I mean, we think of, when we look back, and it seems like so obvious that in the 80s and 90s that people were juicing. I mean, you look at, like, I hate to call people out, but, like, movie stars like Stallone and Schwarzenegger were just, like, blown up and totally ripped, the cuts really deep that significant, with or synonymous with, like, anabolic use. But it was normal. Everybody was fine that Rocky, our fantasy boxer, like, juiced and fought a giant Russian who was juicing as well.
I know. You're right. And it started that way. It's funny that the Athletic Commission itself really had to be educated. I don't remember which commissioners were there at the time, but none of them really thought there was a need. And at the time, and still, wrestling, professional wrestling like WWE, and back then it was WWF, and some other smaller groups had fight cards here, if you want to call them that, or shows. And we would work those. Those were licensed through the state of Nevada, more for the idea of collecting tax money for the state. But they were licensed. And so I remember at the hearings of the Athletic Commission, everyone was like, well, what's the point of doing steroid testing? It's only going to be the heavyweights, if anyone. And so Dr. Homansky really had to educate the Athletic Commission. And what we did, and really the way everything is handled and was handled, even when we instituted MRI testing, is you do it on a step-by-step process. Because any kind of change in the regulations or rules, you really want to do it slowly so that you do educate the participants. And so they started a program, I can't remember how long it lasted, maybe for a couple of months, where athletes would be tested randomly. And by randomly, I mean it would be for a championship fight. They wouldn't do everyone, but it would be definitely for a championship situation. And the fighters initially, maybe for the first month or so, weren't penalized if to have come up positive. And they all received letters and education on what the program was going to do. And little by little, it was instituted. And there's only a few athletic commissions in the country that do any kind of testing, real testing for PEDs. New York does, New Jersey has for some time, California has adopted it as well. I know Pennsylvania is doing some, and Ohio. But there are still very few commissions, and very few of them do anything actually none of them do anything that's that pervasive that includes all the different substances that really need to be looked at, including EPO, erythropoietin, and nobody really does random, unannounced testing, which is a real significant problem. So it's an evolving process, but sadly enough, through all these years since 2001, not much has changed, unfortunately.
We talked about the funding, and can you explain to us how long do you think that's going to work out for? Because obviously you guys are not going to be – you can't charge the fighters that can't afford this type of testing. So how do you continue foregoing something like this without running out with the support that you're getting at the moment?
Well, that's obviously a good point, and I'm hoping that as time goes on that we'll get more financial support. I think, as I mentioned to you the last time, there's different individuals, private individuals, in all kinds of various walks of life, even in the entertainment industry, that are really interested in helping this program. So I'm hoping that there will be a significant amount of donations that will help us continue so that we can test some of the newer fighters that are coming along that don't make the big purses, that maybe make, I remember fighters were only making $100 a round when I first started doing club shows.
Right.
It's probably not that much different. So, I want it to be available for those guys, too, not just the higher profile guys that can pay for it, or their promoters, or that have the big-time promoters that can pay for it. I know people like Lou DiBella, and I know Golden Boy, especially when it came down to the Berto Ortiz fight, were both very willing to pay. And, so that's a different story. But I do agree with you. The only way that this will really survive is that we do generate interest, and that's another reason why I appreciate you putting this on your show and hopefully just getting the word out. I was talking to someone about that today, that we really need to let people know more about this so that hopefully it'll generate more interest.
Now, when we talk about letting people more or less know about this here, one of the things that honestly raises eyebrows is that because there's been so much in the sport in the past right now between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao of the accusations, that some fans they're kind of I guess you could say being misled about the Vada testing by somebody accepting to take the test or asking them to take that test. It's almost saying like they're admitting that they might have been doping or something. How do we kind of lighten that up where that dark cloud kind of goes away?
I agree with you. I mean, I think that's a problem, and that's one thing that I'm really against is this being like somebody calling somebody else out. The one thing that I think that, if anything, this is particularly different as compared to the Mayweather situation where Mayweather has, totally volunteered to take the test but is essentially demanding that his opponents take the test. If this is a voluntary program, and we want to keep it that way so that it doesn't depend on the opponent coming to us. The individual fighter can come to us and say, I'm out there, and I think, Andre Berto is a good example of this, that somebody that's been through the Olympic system, understands the process, understands what it's like to get tested on a frequent basis and randomly and unannounced testing, that this is a way that they can stand up for their sport and say, we have a commitment, I have a commitment to clean sport, and I'm willing to demonstrate that, as opposed to the attitude of calling somebody out saying, I think you're dirty, you better go do this. That is certainly not what we're about. Obviously we want to promote clean sport and we want to prevent cheating, and I would hope that anybody that would come to us, especially with a degree of testing that we're doing, the extensive amount of testing that we're doing as far as all the different substances, that, we wouldn't get a dirty fighter. But with that said, it's important that the athletes themselves are coming with the right attitude, and that's why they have to apply to us. They have to apply. We have an application that they have to fill out. We have to know what they're about, why they want to do this. And, hopefully for those particular athletes, the program will be funded because they're doing it for the right reason.
Like a 365, that's always the thing is, like Victor has said, Conte has said to me, because I always push for the whole package, and he said, no, a half a loaf of bread is still, better than no bread at all. And I love that saying, but I still want the 365. Don't you think a fighter could sign up and maybe get sponsored by Gatorade or something?
No, I agree with you. I totally agree with you, but here's the situation, and I'll tell you there was the main reason why we didn't opt to do that, because initially I was just like you. I thought that was really the way to do it. And not because the testing would be done more often over that period of the 365 days, but I really felt, I agree with you, that that's probably the right thing to do. But here's the situation. When you institute a program like this, you want to do it to the max. You want to do it the right way. And one thing that's really important is that there are repercussions, that there are potential sanctions and something that will happen if somebody tests positive. Athletes and boxers and MMA fighters we're talking about right now, is they travel to all these different jurisdictions. Yes, when someone gets a license in the state of Nevada, they have that license, or in the state of New York, and technically those states could do something as far as delivering sanctions if somebody was found to be positive, but it is much more difficult to do so. So one thing, when we were obviously we wanted to do this the state of the art to equal an Olympic-type program. And when we started working with, like, the UCLA anti-doping lab, that's one of the few WADA-accredited labs in the world, everyone wanted to know what will be the sanctions. So the easiest way for us to do this was when a fighter had actually signed for a fight that was going to be in a specific commission, held in a specific jurisdiction, so that if they were to test positive, what's going to happen? So basically, with our particular program, if somebody tests positive, it's I think these guys started about 7 or 7.5 weeks before their fight. These results immediately go to the athletic commission. They also go to Fight Facts, which is the designated record keeper for the Association of Boxing Commissions, and that there will be something that can happen. In other words, if somebody tests positive and that's confirmed, obviously, then the athletic commission will be the burden on the athletic commission to do something about it. Now, you could say, well, the athletic commission could decide not to, but I think that that's unlikely. I really do. And it'll also be listed on the federal suspension list that this athlete not only in the instance that they've tested positive, will also list that they've tested negative. So, that's another thing. We wanted the fighters to reap the benefits of being negative as well as, God forbid, being positive and having the repercussions of that. So that was really why we tied it to a fight, because we wanted to make sure that something would happen. And, that's another thing. When I spoke to some of the experts at Wada, the World Anti-Doping Agency, they wanted to know that as well. So that was something that was very important, and that was the way we kind of came up with it. But I totally agree with you. It would be better to do it 365 days a year.
How many fighters do you think that are really not aware of what they're putting in their body? So when somebody calls them a cheater, and the fighter is in truth saying I'm not a cheater, but then later finds out that they had something in their body, it was not supposed to be there. How many times does that happen in our sport? Do you know?
I think when I was with the Athletic Commission in Nevada and worked with the Association of Boxing Commissions, I think every time somebody would test positive, that would be the primary, thing out of their mouth. Whether that was true or not, I can't tell you, and that's a sad thing. But that's another thing that Vada wants to really accomplish, and that's one thing that we're trying to do on our website and through Twitter, et cetera, is to eventually reach out to the fighters and their trainers to educate them on what kind of harmful things and what kind of things are illegal that they could be putting in their body. I think we've talked about this before the last time, before the show unfortunately disappeared, that too often these guys don't pay attention. It's the mentality, which isn't a bad one. It's just the way of the world. Boxers start at such a young age. They've got, a father figure of their trainer most often, and
right.
They become, they just don't pay attention to these things. You see it financially all over and over again, that they don't know how to properly handle their finances, and when they start making money, it, all goes to, excuse my language, hell in a handbasket. So I think that this is another thing that's just a part of it. Years ago, back in about 2001, also, Dr. Homansky and I put together a book called Ringside and Training Principles. And we had a whole bunch of experts in the sport, like Teddy Atlas, Emmanuel Stewart, a whole bunch of people, even Shane Mosley at the time. We had a lot of, Ray Leonard. We had people write a chapter in that book about different things that they had expertise on. And the purpose of it was to educate the fighters. And what we did with the book is, we got donations for it, and we gave one to every single fighter and trainer that came through the state of Nevada and anybody that requested one. And we ended up giving out about 5,000 books in about 2 years. And in that book, there was also things on the legal aspects. What did they need to know when they signed a contract? How many of these boxers sign TV contracts and they don't even know what they're signing? They don't have anybody really explain this to them. And it's the same thing with what they put in their body, and it's the same thing on how to make weight and how to not, come into a fight dehydrated. So that was the whole purpose of that. And this is just kind of a carryover through that. And that's another, aspect of Vada is, you hear all the time, I could talk more about MMA on this, about difficulty in making weight and people being overweight and coming into a fight, almost passing out because they're lightheaded from dehydration. These guys need to be educated on that too. And so you really need to have somebody to explain it to them. And I think that the mentality has always been that, the trainer wants to protect the kid. He doesn't feel, he wants the kid focused on the fight, on training, blah, blah, blah. Let somebody else take care of all those things for them. They need to start taking care of those things themselves, and then they will feel more responsible for their career. And I think in the end, they'll be more responsible for their future and for their eventual retirement, and also on a financial level. So I think that this is just kind of an example of that. Obviously, this deals with drug testing. but I think it's just a whole education process and giving the athletes enough credit to let them handle these things themselves, that will make them a better fighter.
What are some of the things that Vada is willing to offer? Are they willing to offer, like, seminars, a seminar for fighters to come in to be educated about what to take or what damages that they're taking that could do harm to their body? And if so, because we have a lot of fighters right now that do listen to our show.
Well, and let's say we're not even talking about performance-enhancing drugs. Let's just say we're talking about making weight, showing up to a fight in condition and not destroying yourself in between fights. Obviously, if we're talking about the younger guys and women, they're younger, so they keep in shape. They fight more often, and as fighters go along, they fight less often, so they have a tendency to get out of shape in between fights. I don't think that these guys understand how that rips up their body. It just destroys them. It's hard on their kidneys. It's hard on their muscles. They're breaking down muscles. And they think, they use training camp, before a fight too much as just a fat farm, a way to lose weight. And if they would try, I know this sounds ridiculous because, look, when you look at the amateurs, I've seen all these Golden Glove guys. I used to work the amateurs, and, so much down at that point, the trainers are trying to fit these fighters in weight classes where they don't belong. Their bodies are growing. They're forced to, go through diets when they're only in their teens, and they're destroying their bodies then, and then they end up in this, vicious cycle of gaining weight, losing weight, eating disorders, blah, blah, blah. And I think there's so many fighters that develop eating disorders for absolutely no necessary reason. And part of it's because the trainers, and I've talked to many expert trainers that tell me the same thing, that some of these kids are forced to be in the wrong weight class from the beginning, and as their bodies grow, it gets worse and worse. And so what happens is, every time they have a fight, maybe they can compensate for it when they're in their teens and early 20s, but they start getting around 27, 28 years of age, they're going to have more problems. Their training camp is not going to be as good as it was. They're not going to be able to lose the weight like they used to, and their diet's going to go up and down like a yo-yo. Their metabolisms are going to be bad, and they're not going to have good performances, and as a result, they'll maybe be successful if they're an elite fighter, but that'll only last so long. And for the other guys that could have made it into an elite category, a semi-elite category, they won't make it. So I think if anything that these fighters can understand is really to try to learn more about, how to lose weight properly, how to stay in shape between a fight. They need a trainer that cares about that, that just says, oh, okay, yeah, go do your road work or just relax in between and, show up, a few weeks before and we'll have you lose weight. And I think it just takes education. And so one thing that these guys can do is they can contact Vada for assistance on that as well. Besides the aspect of actually using, supplements that could be illegal or dangerous, we're happy to help with that too. They can contact us for that kind of information. But I think it's just on an aspect of staying healthy. It's funny. I mean, for some reason, you've got, I don't know if you do this full time, but if you don't do this full time and you have another job, that you have to show up for your job and you have to, stay in shape for your job. It may not be physical shape, but it'll be mental shape. But for some reason, fighters don't understand that that's part of what they need to do to be a professional boxer. That's what their job is to stay in shape while they have their career. And this kind of, vicious cycle of going up and down in weight and just abusing their body on so many different levels with dehydration and overhydration and all that crap just ruins them. And who knows how good some of these guys would have been if they would have taken that care. So if anything, I think that that's important to get out there.
I was just going to say, is it fair to say that boxers are just really irresponsible?
No, I don't think it's that. I don't, and obviously everybody's got to take responsibility for their own life, and that's one thing we were talking about. And, every time somebody shows up with a positive drug test, they like to say, well, it's something that somebody gave them. But they're really responsible for what they take. I mean, that's the bottom line. You run through a stop sign, it's not a good example that, you're not going to get away with it that you didn't see the stop sign. So it's this thing. I mean, I don't think they're irresponsible. I think that the way that fighters are brought up from the amateurs, and most of these guys do have amateur careers, there's this mentality where somebody else takes care of everything for them, and I think that that's just the wrong mentality, that they need to be taught to start taking care of these things for themselves. You know, I'll give you a stupid example. I'm sure you won't care about too much, but it was funny. I was watching on CNN the other day, and they were talking about the Girl Scouts. Okay, like, I mean, I was never a Girl Scout, but they were talking about the Girl Scouts and what they're doing in Girl Scouts now so that these girls get medals. You know, it's not like collecting enough butterflies. Now, these young girls have to show that they understand finances. They have to understand how to save their money. They have to start understanding the stock market. They have to understand, you know, what an IRA is. And so, bottom line is, you know, here you got the Girl Scouts, but a fighter needs to understand that not only on a financial level, but also on a physical level and taking care of their health. And so I don't think it's your responsibility. You know, maybe that's an element of it. I think it's just the way they're brought up, and it just breeds it year after year, so that by the time they get to the professionals and they're, you know, as they go along in their career, their body can't handle what the torture they put themselves in to make weight, and then they start performing badly. So I don't think it's your responsibility. I think it's putting the information out there accessible for them so that they can make their own decisions.
But there's also, I mean, there's the other side. I mean, there's the dark side of it that, to me, I don't know about you, but like seeing like Ryan Braun, he's accepting his, you know, National League MVP, even though he got caught with synthetic testosterone in his system. And then you see Chris Cyborg. Well, she you know, got a penalty. She's out for a year. But, you know, she took Gina Carano's, I always kind of looked at her and thought she was using, and now she got caught. And she didn't get caught with just anything. She got caught with sinazolol. She got caught with a horse, something you give to horses. It says, you know, for equine only on it. So you don't take that by accident. On some level, I mean, if it's not about, you know, it's not about breaking down people's doors and waking them up in the middle of the night and catching them cheating, but it's just basically what you're saying, Vada, is more. Is it that, or is it being a sheriff, or is it just about protecting the fighters to you?
You know, I think it has to be a little of both. I mean, obviously, that's really the job of the athletic commission in one respect. If athletic commissions would take that role, unfortunately, not very many do, and are not doing it in the right way or thoroughly enough. But it's mostly, I think, about educating them. You know, because this is what you have to say. I get this from patients all the time. You know, if you're going to tell them not to do something, what's the alternative? You know, no, everybody wants to win. Everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants the TV contract. People want to be on HBO or Showtime. You know, how can you say, you know, you can't do all this stuff when somebody they know next to them is doing it and is ending up succeeding? So you have to be able to educate them on what are ways that they can train and advance themselves so that they don't have to do this crap and that they don't have to destroy their body. And, you know, that they understand the dangers of it. So, I mean, I think there's an element of that as well, and it takes time, you know. It just takes time, and it takes I think the bottom line is people tend to denigrate fighters. They tend to think that boxers are not as smart, and I think boxers are very smart. I think it takes an incredible amount of intelligence to be a professional fighter, and I think that intelligence should be also focused in other avenues. You know, I know some conditioning guys out there that are great, that sit and talk to the fighters and explain to them, and they want to know. I mean, look at somebody like, you know, Nonito Donaire, look at you know, Berto. I mean, I think these guys want to know about what's going into their body and why, and what's making them better and what's not. Look at somebody like Bernard Hopkins. I mean, you think Bernard Hopkins doesn't know what he's putting in his own body? You know, he's a very intelligent guy, and I think that one reason why Bernard has lasted so long, and one reason why Floyd always looks good is because they take care of themselves between fights. You know, I think that's the main thing.
Well, that's going to be interesting, is to see if, you know, the way boxing politics moves, who knows who gets a shot to fight a Floyd Mayweather. But him in particular, because he's put up, he wants USADA testing. And say Berto moves in that position where he can fight him, and he wants Vada testing. Could we see a fight where one guy uses his own protocol and the other guy uses his?
I'm sure you could. I mean, how could you
one guy
say
declines and says, I don't want to do the Vada, but you go right ahead? I wonder.
Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. I mean, I could never be against USADA testing. I mean, I think USADA does an excellent job. and it always has. I mean, they're, the gold standard. I think that if a fighter wants to do, let's say, Vada testing, and their opponent doesn't, that's the the decision of that opponent. I personally don't put anything on that if they decide not to do it. I was talking to somebody the other day, and this is what, and you guys were talking about this earlier, which is, I think, is a kind of a sad way to look at it, is one of the athletes they were thinking about it. They were thinking about, doing Vada testing, and then the promoter said to me, well, but my guy really doesn't think his opponent is doing it, so why should he then? Because he knows he's not. So if he doesn't think his opponent is, what's the point? And I understand that mentality, but that's not the point. The point is I think for fighters to want to do something positive for the sport, this is the way they can take control and even advance regulations by doing it themselves. Unfortunately, boxing doesn't have a real association, a league for the fighters. They have, less control over everything that happens than they should, and they end up relying on athletic commissions that may or may not do a good job. This is another way they can kind of take control over regulations and advance the regulations themselves, and I'm hoping that down the road this will be more of an illustrative point to athletic commissions to kind of step up their programs.
You guys are setting the bar. I mean, this is the first time, I don't know how far we want to get into exactly what the tests are so people don't, figure out how to beat them, but you're using something that's existed for 10 years but it's been resisted by, I think you saw it in Wada, certainly in the screening process, the carbon isotope ratio testing. It's a very aggressive testing system that you've put up. Talk to me about why that was important to you to use that in the way that you're using it.
Well, I think it's really important because, number one, I think it's very useful, and I think that it will certainly, if it was done on a regular basis in all sports, when they do drug testing, I think it would be more of a deterrent because bottom line is that kind of testing can often pick up when somebody has used testosterone that wouldn't be picked up by a normal test. I mean, I think you guys are so savvy, you know all this, is that now a lot of fighters are using the old-fashioned things like the Strikeforce lady just used, Santos, that they're using shorter-acting testosterone agents that come in creams and gels that can be out of somebody's system within a couple of days. And the CIR testing that we're including usually is only done, and is still predominantly only done, I don't know of anybody doing this other than us, that it was only done if somebody has a high testosterone to epitestosterone ratio. In other words, if somebody takes an anabolic steroid test and it looks like they're using because of this ratio, then they do the CIR testing. Well, we're doing the CIR testing every time we test somebody so that it's much harder to escape detection because that will pick up a shorter acting testosterone product. So to me, that's really important. I mean, I want to do state of the art. I want to do something that's more bang for your buck, so to speak. I mean, all the testing can be expensive. It's funny. I was looking at an article, and I think I sent this to Gabe about, the UFC talking about expanding their testing, when they're going to hire somebody and signing up. And they were talking in there about that the test costs $200. I have not seen a really invasive anabolic steroid test with masking agents and looking at EPO and maybe looking at some other things that's only going to cost $200. And I'm not trying to throw that out. I'm just saying that's a very naive way of looking at things. And if they're only going to do a test that's going to be a $200 test, and even though the UFC has all this money, if they're only going to do that, that certainly isn't going to pick up most of the athletes out there that are much more savvy these days in using much shorter acting agents. So I think that, that's just naivete and inexperience. Trust me, it took me at least 8 to 9 months to understand what's going on now, not only in the underground, but also on a regular basis in performance-enhancing drug use and how to detect it and how to do this on a thoroughly pervasive level, because you can do this the wrong way and it can still cost you a lot of money, but you really need to do it the right way if you want to have it a program that's a deterrent. So it took a huge amount of education on my part to kind of understand this and understand what's going on with athletes. So
wasn't there. I honestly thought it was a good stoppage. Let me patch in the champ Guillermo with us here on Leaving the Ring, and his interpreter is Eddie.
Going into the fight, there was a lot of people picking Rico Ramos. I don't know why. How did you feel going in? Did you look at him from a skill point of view as an easy fight? What did you see when you looked at him?
Bueno, Rico Ramos, por supuesto, porque él era el campeón, por eso era el favorito, pero normal, nosotros salimos a hacer nuestro trabajo y todo salió a la perfección, gracias a Dios, con la ayuda de Sala y el preparador físico el Digi, todo salió a la perfección al 100%.
He said that, of course, Rico Ramos is a great fighter and he was a champ, so, he never took it lightly, but he worked hard at camp. He had a great conditioning coach, DJ, and his new trainer, which he's really, really, really has a great chemistry, which is Ismael Salas, who's already made 12 champions in the world right now.
Everybody kind of talked about how he just wouldn't engage with you, that he looked scared of the moment or of you. Did you get that sense from him that he was only waiting for an excuse to be stopped?
No, no es que tenía miedo, sino que estaba bastante preocupado con el estilo que yo le enfrenté y entonces estaba un poco precavido para atacar. Entonces, como él es un buen boxeador, le es boxeador de contraataque, está esperando que yo lo atacara. Pero bueno, realizamos el trabajo que nosotros vinimos realizando aquí en el gimnasio y Mike Salido.
He says that Rico Ramos, he looked worried, but he didn't look like he was scared. But, he's a counterpuncher by nature, and, he was always very cautious. But Guillermo had a game plan in there on how to attack him, and, he didn't know how to figure out how Guillermo came into the ring to attack him. And, it all worked out, all the preparations and everything that we did, it showed him, as you can see.
I want to ask Guillermo, because a lot of times fans refer him as boring. What is his thoughts about that, and how some fans think that he's a boring fighter?
Aburrido, ¿cómo que aburrido? No vieron el trabajo. Salimos a hacer nuestro trabajo y todo salió a la perfección. Imagínate, cada uno tiene su opinión, pero nosotros hacemos salir a hacer el trabajo de nosotros.
He says everybody has their opinion, of course, but as you can see, there's nothing boring about his style was on Friday night, the 20th. I mean, as you can see, it takes two to tangle in the ring, and, he can only do what he can do with, when somebody is not engaging in him. But as you can see, he was very aggressive. And, he got the job done. He wanted to put a great show on for Showtime and all his fans.
My follow-up question to that about the whole boring thing is that I think that sometimes, like when Nonito Donaire talking about that, the fight doesn't make any sense. It's almost like they're using that leverage of fans saying that he's boring. That's why they shouldn't make that fight happen. Do you think that he believes it's because it could be a boring fight, or it's because that Guillermo could beat him?
Bueno, nosotros estamos esperando por la respuesta de él, que los manejadores y los promotores se pongan de acuerdo, ver si esa pelea se va a dar. Pero bueno, yo estoy preparado para que venga. Yo estoy esperando que él se decida a pelear conmigo y estamos preparados para eso.
He says that he's definitely waiting for the management and the promotional team to put something together on, and hopefully that Donito, will come to the table, and he will show you there's nothing boring about his style. If Donito comes, he will attack. He has his own game plan that what he wants to do that night, and he's going to show the world that he's definitely not boring. And you know what? We believe that Donito does not want to fight him for a lot of reasons. I mean, he's seen what he can do, to the champ right now, and Donito's coming up on weight. I don't believe that Donito wants to engage with him, and the word going around is that he's definitely ducking him, for a lot of reasons, and it's not because of boring reasons.
I was curious, it kind of came out of nowhere when you changed trainers, and you seemed happy with Ronnie Shields. He seemed like he was happy with you. Did you want to address that at all, why you decided to change? Was it a cultural thing? What was it that made you change?
Bueno, la razón es que nosotros, yo salí de Ronnie, era que tenía muchos peleadores que iban a pelear estos meses atrás, tenía como 4 o 5 boxeadores y no estaba ahí. No es que yo no me fui porque yo quise, sino que no tenía el tiempo suficiente para dedicármelo para esta pelea, que tenía muchos boxeadores que le peleaban y entonces tenía que estar fuera del centro de entrenamiento.
He says that Ronnie was kind of, very busy. He's busy with a lot of fighters. He had 4 or 5 fighters about the same time. He doesn't have anything against Ronnie Shields. He got along with Ronnie Shields very well. But, he felt that he needed a lot more time, and then unfortunately there was a schedule conflict there, and basically that's it. And also with Salas, makes it a lot easier because you don't lose any translation in the corner, They're both Spanish, they're both Cuban, they both know each other back in Cuba. So it made it a lot easier for us to work with them, and not losing translation in the corner.
Absolutely. Eddie and Guillermo Reggaeton, thank you very much for calling in and speaking to us. It's always appreciative. And keep us updated, and we're going to always keep cheering for you guys. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
¿Con Orlando?
Sí.
Ok, Orlando. Mi nombre es David Dueñez. Estoy con mi partner, Gabriel Montoya. Es Libre en el Ring Radio. Nosotros vamos a hablar en inglés y César va a hablar en español, ¿ok?
Okay.
Primero quiero decirle gracias para tenerle tiempo para hablar con nosotros aquí, ¿ok?
Okay, muchas gracias.
Okay. Hey, Cesar, my first question is the rematch. It took a little while for it to materialize. Why did it take so long? Was it a money factor? Was it? And another thing is that I believe it's going to be in Puerto Rico. Why did he give up that leverage there? Why is he going back over there?
No, pues bueno, la pelea, pues los promotores la pusieron allá, dice que la televisión no venía para México y todo eso, y así lo negociaron y fue allá, pues ni modo, vamos a donde los promotores manden.
Okay, ahora, ¿por qué se tomó tanto tiempo de materializar esa pelea? ¿No pudo ser rápido o tenía que esperar un cierto tiempo?
Bueno, me parece que la televisión no tenía fecha, Showtime tenía todas las fechas ocupadas, por eso no la realizaron de inmediato.
The fight took so long because Showtime did not have a date for it, and also the fight was in Puerto Rico because the promoters decided that it was the best viable time and place for it because supposedly the TV was not going to be good numbers in Mexico, so they moved it over to Puerto Rico.
Why wouldn't it be good numbers in Mexico?
No, pues no tengo la menor idea, solo fue los datos de los promotores los que se arreglaron ahí y ya me pusieron a mí que si quería ir ahí, pues yo iba donde ellos me mandaran y le dije.
Really, he has no idea why it was made over there. That he goes wherever the promoter says to go. He says he has no problem fighting Puerto Rico.
Oh, let me ask you: does he feel that he's a underrated or unappreciated Mexican warrior? Because I mean, he's not really mentioned a whole lot, and to me, it doesn't seem like the public of Mexico or even the Mexican people in the United States have fully backed him on his accomplishments.
No, pues pienso que no me han dado la atención que merezco porque he sido campeón 3 veces de peso pluma y pues ya con la victoria con Juan Manuel Lopez, pues ya yo creo que ya es momento que me tomen en cuenta ya todos.
He says that, he does feel a little unwanted, but because he's been champion three times already, three times in featherweight division, he says that with this fight, it's going to give him his just due by defeating Juanma Lopez one more time.
Just take me back to that fight, the first fight with Juanma. You're a Mexican all alone in Puerto Rico. Obviously, everything's kind of against you. What was it about Lopez that made you feel like you could win? And how soon in the fight did you find it?
Bueno, pues me preparé para eso, para ir a ganar. Me preparé con todo lo que tenía sabía que era una pelea muy difícil contra Juanma López, el número 1 de la división, número 1 pluma, invicto, 30 ganadas, 27 knockouts, pero íbamos bien preparados mental y físicamente y desde el tercer round ya supe que yo lo podía ganar, supe que mis golpes le hacían daño y podía ganarle.
Gabriel, he said that he was very prepared. He knew it was going to be a hard fight no matter where it was, but he was prepared mentally, he was prepared physically, and he knew it from the third round on that he was going to be able to win the fight because he could see Juanma Lopez hurting from the punches that he was receiving.
You've got a really awkward right hand. At what point did you realize that you could sneak it in there on him? Was it the second round or before that?
Bueno, pues el plan de pelea era presionarlo y estarle tirando esos golpes volados. Y gracias a Dios, pues nos dimos cuenta que le estaban entrando todos esos y nos dimos cuenta que esa era la llave para abrir el camino para la victoria.
He says that the game plan the first time was to pressure all the time, and to throw the overhand right. And then once he saw that the overhand was landing, he just started throwing it more often. There are some people that say that Lopez wasn't focused, for you. He thought you would be an easy out. Do you think that's unfair to you? How hard you worked to beat him and to prepare for him, to say that he wasn't that prepared for you and that's why he lost?
Bueno, pues sí me duele que digan eso, pero el 10 de marzo vamos a rectificar la victoria, que no fue casualidad, y vamos por la victoria.
He said that, it does hurt a little bit. It does hurt when people talk about that he wasn't prepared, that he was overlooking Orlando Salido. But he says that on the rematch, he's going to show everybody that there was no casualty, it was no accident. He's going to show who the better man in the ring is.
With his fight, that first fight, and I've heard the same thing said about him and Lopez, saying that Lopez overlooked him. But ever since he was stopped by Orlando, Lopez hasn't looked the same. It looked like more or less that he's really kind of took a dive in his career. Does he see that too?
Pues yo pienso que fue el castigo que le proporcioné esa pelea porque lo golpeé mucho, pero yo pienso que fue eso, los golpes que recibió en esa pelea, porque fueron bastantes.
He's saying that, in his opinion, it's the punishment that he inflicted on Juan Manuel Lopez that's making him look the way he looks now, that he absorbed way too many punches, hard punches, and he's not the same fighter anymore.
So my follow-up to that, knowing that he's not the same fighter anymore, why did he feel that he needed to take the rematch? I mean, were there no other fights out there that could have been materialized? I mean, a rematch with Gamboa, possibly going after somebody else. Why repeat something that can possibly end a lot shorter? What was the purpose of taking the rematch?
Bueno, porque Juan me puso muchos pretextos cuando le gané, que se estaba divorciando, que no se había preparado bien, que me había menospreciado y todo eso, y como él era en ese momento el mejor de la división, yo quiero demostrar que aún él estando como al 100%, le voy a volver a ganar.
Okay. He's saying that the main reason he took the fight was because Juan Manuel Lopez made so many excuses that he was getting a divorce, that he was overlooking this fight and to bigger and better things. He's like, okay, there are no excuses this time. He says he's 100%. I'm going to show him again that I'm the better man.
I have one more, and this is kind of going back into his history, but it's an important question to me. You tested positive against Robert Guerrero for nandrolone, but what a lot of people don't know is that you stayed with your innocence, and you went to LabCorp, and you got a different test result, and they said you didn't take steroids. Do you feel that your name has been sufficiently cleaned by that? Do you think people still look at you that way because of the first test?
Bueno, pues mi nombre no ha sido limpiado de eso todavía, pero nunca se demostró nada. La comisión hizo que me declarara culpable porque casi iba a seguir durante varios años, pero como ustedes dicen, como salió ahí en el examen una prueba positiva y una negativa, y las dos fueron el mismo día, uno antes de la pelea y uno después de la pelea. El antes era positivo y el después de la pelea negativo.
He's saying that, he still thinks his name has not been cleared from the steroid test. He said, but that's up to the commission. That's not up to him. He wants everybody to understand that is the following: that the positive drug test, anti-doping test for the nandrolone was a pre-fight, and on the post-fight, he took another test and it came out negative. So he's like, it was up to the commission to decide if he was going to be guilty or not, and the commission decided to say yes, he was guilty.
After they made their decision, he felt that there was no need to fight against that and allowed them to move forward. I don't understand why would he do that?
Pues sí protesté y todo eso, pero el abogado me dijo que me declarara culpable porque yo necesitaba pelear porque no tenía para comer ni nada de eso, y eso era mi único sustento para seguir peleando, y me iban a retener a bolsa y todo eso, y acá dice, ya me iba a cumplir el plazo que me habían dado sin pelear, y por eso acepté la culpabilidad.
Basically said, okay, fine, I'm guilty, because that was the advice of his lawyer. He's like, at that time, he didn't have anything to eat. He didn't want his purse to be taken away from him. Besides, the amount of time of the appeals and everything, he was almost done with the suspension time that the commission put against him. So it was easier for him to say, okay, I'm guilty, take the short time that was left in the suspension, and get back in the ring and provide for his family.